Hello everyone and welcome back. In the last lecture I showed you approximately how I go about searching for data and some potential strategies for finding it, and then we applied it during searching for data for this project that we're working on, where we're looking for agriculture in floodplains in California. The other portion of it, since we already found the floodplain data, is the crop data for California. And rather than bore you by watching me search for more data, I'm just going to show you where I ended up getting it, which is a page from the California Department of Water Resources. And it gets listed out in these zip files per county, and they're taken during different years. Now, what I want you to be thinking about this week before we continue on with the project next week is how we're going to take this data that we're getting and process it. So first, we have a challenge here. We have a bunch of different data files that if we want to analyze a large area, we'll have to find some way to either merge them together or some way to analyze them repeatedly and do it across different data sets. So seeing a bunch of different data sets spanning the area we're interested in is a little bit of a challenge, but it's not insurmountable. So when we download these, we get folders like this, where we have a zip file, and then if I extract it, inside of it I get a PDF and then a folder that has a shapefile and some PDFs in it. Our metadata is spread across these PDFs. So if I open up this one, I can see a bunch of information on how the data was acquired and accuracy and projection information. So our basic metadata. The attributes are described in this other PDF though, but not in full detail. It gives us a description of them, but if I want to find out what they actually mean, I then have to go back out to this PDF here with the legend. Now this will be important because we'll look at the attributes in a moment and we'll see that we really need some attribute interpretation. So let's take a look at one of these layers. This is the layer I downloaded. So first, I see a bunch of polygons, smaller ones covering the main part of this county, but then I see these bigger ones that seem to cover maybe they're quadrangles or quarter quadrangles, but these much larger polygons that I bet aren't actually part of the county, and they're just extending out to cover an entire area. So when I download more data sets, I'll have to figure out if this polygon here and these other corner polygons kind of conflict with the other data sets I download, and then I'll need to find a way to potentially identify and remove that. Additionally, when I open the attribute table, I can see that I have a bunch of really cryptic attributes, a bunch with asterisks in them, and then what looks like irrigation type and class and subclass. And from looking at the metadata, I know that class is part of the land use, and then subclass is another part of the land use. So if we want to measure the land use in one way, we'd have to combine these attributes somehow. So these are just a few of the potential challenges ahead of us if we want to work with this data set. And as far as I know, it's the only comprehensive data set covering California for agriculture. So we do have some challenges facing us for this project. Again, what I want you thinking about is how are we going to manage this data? Once we download all of those zip files and then have them on our computer along with the National Flood Hazard Layer, what kind of processing might we go through before we can actually even run our analysis? What data management do we have up front that we have to get out of the way before we can start really analyzing our data in earnest? This is a big part of spatial analysis, and it's not something I've made you do much of yet because it's tedious and it requires a little more experience to know what you're looking at first. So it's really important to learn though. It's also a part of the process that's a little harder for us to assess and grade. So that's part of why it's not in the project, is making sure everybody gets the same data set and then does all this pre-processing is a little more challenging to set up an objective way to grade you. So that's part of why we're doing it as this project, is I want to make sure that you get this experience and get thinking about it this way, in a way that we can actually accomplish in a course format like Coursera has. Okay, that's it for now. I just wanted to point out a few of the data format idiosyncrasies we have, some of the things that you should be thinking about for next week. Participate in this week's discussion questions and start thinking about how we could put these data together into a comprehensive project. You don't have to have a full outline step by step, just kind of have in your mind some ways that you might approach going about this, some things you might try first, and an idea of how you'd want to manage this data. That's really what you should be thinking about right now. And then go participate in those discussion questions, and we'll talk next week. See you then.